Thank you, Mr. William Carter, for sending us such a meaningful story by email. Tonight, Dust and Destiny will share with you a true account, passed down in your letter, of life and death on the frontier. The story begins not with cattle, nor with horses, but with something far more shocking. In a crowded auction house along the borderlands of Arizona, the sound of a wooden gavel cracked against the block like a death sentence. A dozen souls stood on the platform, not beasts of burden, not chattel from the ranges. Children, 12 children lined up like livestock, their hollow eyes darting nervously from the crowd to the man who called their names. The year was 1881, October in Arizona, when the desert air was dry as bone and hot winds lashed crooked saloon signs until they groaned on rusted hinges. Sweat and horse musk clung to every plank of that settlement. Inside the hall, beneath kerosene lamps that cast a sickly glow, Curtis Valentine stood tall in his black coat, his smile as slick as oil. He was a trafficker in human flesh, dressed up as a businessman. He raised his hand to still the murmurs. "First lot," he announced smoothly. "Strongbacks, orphans capable of earning their keep." He began the bidding at $20 a head. The ranchers in the room nodded and murmured, treating the moment as casually as if they were selecting saddles. Hands went up in practiced rhythm. 25, 30, 40. Voices climbed while the children stared at their boots. At the rear wall stood Tyen Nightwind. Apache by blood, proud in her bearing, she bore a scar across her shoulder from a skirmish years before. Her dark eyes cut through the haze of cigar smoke. She hadn't come to buy. She had come to stop a crime unfolding in plain sight. Beneath the fabric of her dress, her hand brushed against the hilt of a blade she had hidden. Every nerve in her body told her to act, yet she forced herself to watch, to measure, to wait. Among the buyers was a man who did not fit the pattern. Gideon Nash, the wealthiest rancher in 3 counties, known for his vast herds and his silence. His leather pouch sagged heavy with gold coin. For long minutes he had remained motionless. Then, as the first name was called, Daisy Flynn, he stepped forward. $100, Nash said flatly. The room went silent. Curtis Valentine blinked, greed flashing in his eyes. $100 for a single child? No one else dared follow. The gavel fell hard. Sold to Mr. Nash. But Nash did not stop. For the next child he repeated the same bid. 100, then another, and another. By the 5th, the crowd was no longer whispering. They were staring openly, suspicion and confusion etched on their faces. Tyen narrowed her gaze. At first, she thought Nash was simply flaunting his wealth, perhaps collecting servants as trophies. But as she studied the children more closely, her stomach tightened. She noticed the flushed cheeks, the slight tremors, the shallow breathing. She smelled it too. The faint bitter tang of diluted laudanum in the water cups given to them before the sale. These were not hardy orphans destined for labor. They were sick, fevered, marked for death before winter. And Nash? Was he purchasing silence? Or was he buying time? Curtis Valentine, confident that no one would outbid the rancher, leaned close to a fellow speculator and muttered words that carried further than he realized. "Half of them got the fever. Won't survive the season. Best to make use quick." The words froze Tyen in place. She turned sharply, her eyes falling on Nash. He stood like a stone pillar, voice steady as he purchased each child in turn. She could not read his intentions. To her, he was a puzzle, a white rancher with a tarnished reputation for wealth, yet willing to spend it all in one night. Here lay the first knot of the story, the early clash of morals and survival. Was it justice or law? On paper, every sale was legal. The sheriff himself stood among the crowd, not to stop the trade, but to eye his own investment. The law in Tombstone that night bent like dry grass in the wind. Was it rescue or collusion? To buy those children was to legitimize Valentine's business. Yet if no one intervened, they would be worked to death in mines or barns, their fever dismissed as laziness until they collapsed. And what of honor? For Tyen, the question carried blood weight. She was Apache, a daughter of the Chiricahua, standing in a hall where her people's suffering was treated as common commerce. To expose herself was to risk the rope. To remain silent was to betray her own spirit. Around her the air grew hotter, the murmurs sharper. Some in the crowd sneered, amused by Nash's extravagant spending. Others watched with unease. Tyann felt the handle of her blade, her knuckles whitening. Every instinct told her to strike, to end the masquerade of law with one act of frontier justice. Yet her mind whispered caution. Perhaps Nash was no fool. Perhaps he was laying a trap of his own. And so the question hangs, as it did that night in October of 1881. If you were Tyann Nightwind, would you shatter the auction with steel and fury? Or hold your silence, gather proof, and risk that every hour lost was an hour stolen from the lives of those children? Tyann Nightwind did not wait for the crowd to scatter before slipping into the shadows. She knew Valentine's type, a man who feasted on weakness and clothed himself in paperwork to call it legal. Justice in Tombstone bent to whoever held the heavier purse. But the desert told the truth, and the desert was where she would look. Outside the auction house, the air was sharp with dust. Moonlight revealed the tracks of wagons still fresh in the dirt, deep ruts gouged by heavy loads. She crouched low, brushing her fingers over the mud where blades of foxtail grass still clung, torn up in the wheel's passage. The dampness told her all she needed. A caravan had been there not long ago, and it hadn't come for livestock. She followed the trail to a dry wash where the faint trickle of water licked against stone. Along the bank, she found scraps of cloth, torn leather, and a charred circle of ashes. Among the remnants lay a corn-husked doll with its braided hair torn loose. Tyann picked it up gently, her throat tightening. She had seen this before, families trying to reach California, whole wagon trains cut down by fever. Adults fell first, leaving children bewildered, starving, desperate. Valentine hadn't rescued those children. He had harvested them like carrion. Back in town that night, Gideon Nash housed the dozen young ones in a storeroom behind his ranch supply shed. He lit no lanterns beyond the hearth, drew no attention. He fed them broth spoon by spoon, tucked them under wool blankets. They needed warmth, quiet, and above all, safety from eyes that would see them as property. Curtis Valentine came slinking by, his grin stretched tight, whispering through his teeth. "All done, Marshal. Papers in order. I'll be on the evening train, fat with coin." Nash gave only a single nod, his face unreadable. From outside the window, Tyann watched. In the wavering light of the fire, she caught the way his jaw tensed, the way his hands lingered over the children's blankets. He was stalling. Valentine thought Nash a partner in profit. Tyann began to suspect otherwise, yet suspicion was not enough. The children were fading. She saw it in the way their eyes glazed, their heads drooped. Laudanum, she knew the smell, bitter and heavy in their breath. They didn't have days, they had hours. Too many times she had seen men promise salvation with ink and seals while lives drained away in waiting. But to storm in now, knife flashing, would doom them all. She forced her own rage down and turned to her sister. "Ayanna," she whispered, "run to Doc Williams. Tell him sick children are here. Then go to the post and send word to the U.S. Marshals. Hurry." The younger woman nodded and vanished into the night. Tyann stayed behind, a lone sentinel between innocence and the wolves. It did not take long for trouble to sniff her out. At the corner of Main Street, 3 ranch hands intercepted her, half-drunk and ugly with hunger for easy gain. "Lady," one of them slurred, "we'll take 2 of them little ones off your boss's hands. Pay fair price." "They're not for sale," Tyann answered coldly, her English sharp. "Everything's for sale." One reached for her sleeve. She stepped back, looped her rope around a hitching post, and jerked it tight with practiced hands. The noose swayed in the lamplight, her gaze hard as iron. "Step closer," she warned, "and this rope will find a better neck." The men cursed and spat, but retreated into the dark. Yet their whispers already slithered through town, the Apache woman's blocking business. Tyann pressed on, following instinct out toward the open plain. Hours later, she reached a barren patch of earth that smelled of sickness and smoke. There, in shallow graves marked by crooked sticks, lay 43 mounds of dirt. Flies rose in a black cloud when she approached. Empty barrels and scattered belongings told the tale. A wagon train stricken by fever, abandoned by any mercy. She knelt and lifted another doll, nearly whole except for its missing braid. Her heart clenched. This belonged to Daisy Flynn, the small girl who had swayed on her feet at the auction, cheeks flushed with fever. This was proof, mute, undeniable, that the children had been stolen from the graves of their parents. By dawn, Tyen returned, the doll tucked safely in her satchel. Inside the storeroom, Valentine pressed Nash for signatures. Best put your name proper on these transfers. Make it neat for the court. I'll take my leave, and you'll have your property all squared away. He patted his coat pocket, where train tickets and forged deeds bulged. The rancher stood silent. His hand drifted inside his vest. And then, with a single motion, he drew it forth, a silver badge that caught the light of the hearth. Territorial Marshal. The room erupted in gasps and mutters. Valentine staggered back, his grin collapsing into panic. But it was not Nash who stepped forward first. It was Tyen. She entered with steady steps, the corn-husk doll in her hand. Kneeling before Daisy, she pressed the toy into the child's fingers. "Your mother made this for you," she said softly. Then she rose, her eyes burning into Valentine. "And the man who dragged you here also stole the water and the medicine from your family's camp. He left them to die." Every head turned toward Valentine. The children clutched at one another. The sheriff shifted uncomfortably by the door, but the silver badge gleamed undeniable. The line between law and justice had sharpened to a blade's edge. The evidence lay in shallow graves and in a child's trembling hand. And so we ask you, the listener, if the proof was already heavy enough to drag a man to the gallows, would you wait for the federal courts to arrive? Or would you strike then and there, seizing justice on the spot, knowing lives still hung by a thread? Curtis Valentine's grin cracked into a sneer when he realized the silver badge gleamed against Nash's chest. Yet, even cornered, the man could not resist boasting. "You think these brats would have stood quiet on that block without help?" he spat. "Laudanum, Marshal. Enough in their bellies to keep them docile. Why do you think they sway like reeds in the wind? Half of them are already sinking." The words spread through the room like fire on dry grass. Eyes widened, shouts rose, and in the corner one of the smaller boys slumped to the floor, his lips paling, his breathing ragged. "Doc Williams!" Tyen barked, even before the old physician shouldered through the doorway. The man carried his black case, face taut with urgency. One look at the children and he knew. "They'll choke on their own lungs if we don't move fast. Wagons now, charcoal syrup, blankets. Every able hand in this town. With me." Chairs toppled. Boots hammered across the floorboards. The saloon that had mocked the auction became a field hospital in the span of minutes. Tyen seized command with the coolness of a war scout. "You," she ordered a ranch hand, "bring water, not cold, warm. You, tear rags for wrapping. Keep them awake. Call their names, slap their cheeks if you must. No one sleeps tonight." She crouched beside Daisy Flynn, the frail girl with fever-bright eyes and the corn-husk doll clutched tight against her chest. Daisy's breaths came shallow, her eyelids fluttering. Tyen pressed her palms against the child's hands, rubbing warmth into those tiny fingers. "Stay with me, little one. Hear my voice. Daisy. Daisy Flynn." The girl stirred faintly. Tyen counted each breath, fought for each heartbeat. "Don't let go. Don't follow the dark." Around them, chaos throbbed. Buckets clattering, voices shouting, Doc Williams commanding. Ayana dashed back, carrying fresh blankets, her braid damp with sweat. Together they wrapped each child, forcing them to vomit, feeding them charcoal to draw the poison. The stench was sharp, but the rhythm of survival steadied. Valentine tried to slip away in the confusion, but two U.S. Marshals, newly arrived from the telegraph call, seized him and slammed iron cuffs on his wrists. Pressed against the wall, the trafficker lashed out in fury. "All I did was make use of what the desert left. Those parents were weak, dying like flies. I gave their brats a purpose." His voice was shrill, venom dripping. "I held the water. I hid the medicine, watched them wither. Then I gathered the little ones worth more alive than buried. And you all..." He sneered at the crowd. "You'd have done the same if you'd had the guts." Gasps rippled. The sheriff, who had stood silent all night, found no words now. The badge on Nash's chest glimmered, the authority of the territory heavier than any local corruption. The marshals hauled Valentine back, but Tyen did not move from Daisy's side. She stroked the girl's brow, whispering in Apache and English both, prayers mingled with commands. Hours bled away as lanterns guttered low, as townsfolk fetched whatever scraps of medicine they could find. By dawn, the storm broke. One by one, the children's breathing steadied. Their pulses grew stronger. Daisy stirred, her eyes opening slowly to the dim light. "My papa's workshop," she murmured weakly. It smelled like pine shavings. He was going to build us a house in California with a porch where Mama could plant roses. Tyen squeezed her hand, her own back aching from hours on the hard floor. "You'll see roses yet," she whispered. She did not sleep, did not loosen her grip. Through that long night, the question that had plagued her, whether buying was collusion or salvation, found its answer. Papers might have said property, but the badge had said protector. The coin had bought hours, and in those hours, justice had seized root. The children lived. The trafficker would hang. When the trial convened weeks later under territorial law, the court listened to testimony of shallow graves, of stolen supplies, of laudanum forced on fevered mouths. The verdict was swift: guilty of murder, kidnapping, and poisoning. Sentence: death by hanging. Nash remained at the edge of the crowd as judgment was read, his expression unreadable. This was not his story to claim. It was Tyen who knelt, wrapping her arms around Daisy as the child trembled in her embrace. "It's all right to be afraid," she told her gently, "but don't you ever give up." Outside, the desert wind carried away Valentine's curses as he was dragged to the gallows. And so another chapter of the frontier closed, not with vengeance unchecked, but with law brought to heel by honor. Justice in the West was a fickle beast. Sometimes it wore a badge, sometimes it rode a horse with drawn steel. This night it had lived because one Apache woman refused to stand aside, and because others listened when she said, "Save them first, punish later." Now, listener, I turn to you. If a man causes death not with bullets but by hoarding water, by watching sickness claim the weak, what is a punishment that fits the crime? Should the rope take him, swift and final? Or should he be driven to labor until his last breath, forced each day to repay lives he stole? The gallows took Curtis Valentine, but his shadow lingered long after the rope snapped. For Tyen Nightwind, survival was never the end of the road. She had buried too many to believe that living another day was enough. Her scars, and her people's scars, demanded something greater, something that could not be burned away by fire or auctioned off to the highest bidder. She stood on the crest above Red Canyon, the autumn wind sweeping her dark hair across her shoulders, and spoke aloud to Gideon Nash. Her voice was calm, but it carried the sharpness of flint. "I will not be remembered as a victim who escaped. I will not be a trophy for anyone's conscience. I want to build a place where my people can live without chains or pity, a place where they are paid fairly for their work, not handed scraps, where their children learn to read and write in Apache and English, where medicine is made of both roots and remedies, both herbs and syringes, a place where we do not just survive, we grow." Nash leaned against the corral post, silent as always, eyes narrowed against the sun. He had seen death in battles, had seen greed swallow men whole, but there was something new in Tyen's words. A vision larger than vengeance, deeper than grief. "You'll need land, paper, signatures that hold in court," he said at last. "If you're willing to trust me, I'll split Red Canyon with you, on paper. White ink, black letters, not charity, a contract. You'll stand as co-owner with your chief beside you." It was more than she had expected, yet less than she demanded. She turned the words over like stones in her hand. "If this is to be done, it will be done cleanly. No man can later call us squatters on ground we built with our hands." "Then we'll call in the lawyer from Tucson," Nash said, his voice steady. "I'll sign my name beside yours, and if I ever break that promise, you can burn the papers and take the land back yourself." When Chief Nantan arrived, riding with the weight of years and the gaze of a hawk, the papers were waiting. He listened to Tyen's vision, nodding at her determination. Then he looked at Nash, studying the man with the suspicion of one who had seen too many broken vows. "This is not a gift?" Nantan asked. "No," Nash answered. "It's an agreement. You do your share, I do mine. The land will belong to those who work it, not to those who hoard it." Nantan placed his hand on the parchment. "Then today, we carve a bridge in the desert." The contract was signed. Weeks later, a rider arrived from Tucson bearing more than dust. The federal court had finally recognized the Nightwind family's land claim, decades old and thought forgotten. Compensation was granted, not a fortune by Eastern standards, but more money than Tayen had ever seen. Enough to purchase adjoining parcels, enough to build with stone instead of driftwood, enough to prove that Apache hands could wield law as well as bow. Tayen read the letter twice, then folded it carefully. "This money is not an ending," she told Ayana. "It is a tool, and tools are only useful when used with discipline." The building began. Fences stretched wider, corrals expanded. A modest schoolhouse rose near the creek, built with planks from Nash's mill and painted with whitewash by Apache and settler children together. A clinic followed, its shelves stocked with quinine and willow bark alike, where Doc Williams accepted the teaching of women who knew plants better than textbooks. Red Canyon began to hum with life, but the frontier does not forgive quickly. One evening, Ayana lingered at the stream, humming softly as she gathered water. She never saw the shadow creeping through the brush. One of Valentine's last followers, gaunt and desperate, had waited for this chance. His pistol gleamed as he stepped forward. Tayen had already read the signs, the unfamiliar boot tracks, the crushed reeds. She lay in wait above the bank, a snare rope stretched low across the trail. When the outlaw lunged, the trap snapped tight, yanking him off his feet. He hit the ground with a curse, weapon spinning into the water. Tayen was on him in a breath, knife in hand. For one long moment she stood above him, rage boiling, the memory of children vomiting laudanum still raw. Her muscles screamed to strike, to end it, but she forced her breath slow, and her words cut sharper than any blade. "We do not become what we hate. Justice does not crawl in blood, it stands upright." She bound the man tight and delivered him to the marshals. The lesson spread through the canyon like gospel. Discipline was the true test of honor. From then on, Red Canyon thrived without apology. Families came, carrying what little they had. They were given wages in coin and calves in kind. They ate meals together in the longhouse Rosa Martinez ran, her laughter rising above the crackle of fire. Children learned to write their names in both languages, to count cattle by number, and to chant stories by memory. Doc Williams visited on schedule, not as a master but as a partner. He taught first aid while learning the secrets of sage, aloe, and mesquite from Apache women who had healed wounds long before doctors carried stethoscopes. On the day the flagpole was raised in the canyon's heart, Tayen stood before the gathered crowd. Men, women, children, Apache and settler alike waited for her words. She did not speak with poetry, but with conviction. "We are not here to beg for a place at the table," she declared. "We are here to build it with our own hands. We do not ask for space. We carve it." The cheer that followed was unlike the roar of an auction crowd. It was the sound of people choosing to belong to one another. And in the quiet that followed, the bond between Tayen and Gideon Nash revealed itself. It was not a prize for survival, not a debt repaid. It grew from plans drawn side by side, from arguments fought and resolved, from nights spent repairing fences beneath the same stars. It was a love born of mutual respect, tempered by loss, sharpened by shared vision. Chief Nantan saw it, and his blessing came with the weight of warning. "Love is not weakness," he told them, "but compassion must stand tall. If it bends too easily, it becomes chains again." Tayen bowed her head, accepting the lesson. Nash answered with the same gravity. They would walk forward not as savior and saved, but as equals bound by choice. So, Red Canyon took root, not as a refuge of charity, but as a covenant of labor and dignity. It did not erase scars, but it gave them meaning. It was proof that in the fiercest deserts, seeds can still grow if planted with discipline and watered with honor. And now, to you who listen, Which model do you trust to mend the frontier's wounds? The charity that flows downward from a hand that can snatch it away? Or the partnership signed in ink, sealed in sweat, carried out by equals? Autumn returned to Red Canyon, and with it came a gentler light. The cliffs glowed copper in the afternoon sun, cattle drifted in slow procession across the valley floor, and children's laughter rang out by the well. The ranch that once echoed with silence now pulsed with life. Near the barn, a length of rope swung loosely from a fence post. It was the same rope that had once hung in the rafters of a stable, a symbol of threat and violence. Now it held rails together, turned from a noose into a tool of building. In that simple transformation lay the truth of Red Canyon. What once destroyed could be reshaped to sustain. From the porch, Tyann Nightwind watched the scene unfold, her arms folded, her gaze steady. She saw more than cattle and children. She saw the proof that survival could grow into community, that grief could be shaped into a foundation. She had fought for this not with grand speeches but with unbending resolve. The lesson was clear, carved into the dust and stone of the frontier. Justice in these borderlands rarely began in courtrooms. Too often, courts were bought, sheriffs corrupt, laws bent to fit the hand that paid. True justice was born when one person dared to stand upright against the current, and when others followed that example with discipline and honor. Freedom, too, was not something handed down by decree. It was not a certificate, nor a verdict stamped by a judge. Freedom was a choice made every morning, to rise without hatred, to resist repeating cruelty under the mask of vengeance, to live as more than what enemies had tried to make of you. And family, Tyann understood now, was not only the blood you shared but the bonds you forged. Daisy and the other children had found parents again in the Nashes. Apache families had found brothers and sisters in one another. Yet honor remained personal. No contract, no partnership, no promise from another could carry it for you. Honor was the weight each soul bore, silently, day by day. In the West, victory was not always loud. It was measured in promises kept. And so the old words rang true, passed from campfire to canyon. On this red dust land, the one who keeps their word first is the one who endures. As the evening sun dipped and shadows stretched long, the porch filled with quiet voices, the kind that make a place feel like home. Children called to one another in two languages. Rosa stirred a pot in the kitchen, and Doc Williams sat contentedly on the steps, polishing his spectacles. Nash leaned against the railing, his eyes catching Tyann's for a brief moment of understanding. They had not erased the cruelty of the world, but they had built a wall against it, one stone at a time. And now, dear listener, this story comes to you because William Carter took the time to write, to pass along a memory worth carrying. You have heard not just about death and survival, but about dignity won through courage. If the story spoke to you, stay with us at Dust and Destiny. Share these tales so others may know the truths that linger in the dust of the frontier. Leave your thoughts below. When justice falters in the hands of law, would you choose the frontier's rough justice, or would you wait on official courts? And if your own family has carried down a story of the West, of courage, of conflict, of honor tested, send it to us by email. We will read, consider, and perhaps tell it here, just as we have done tonight. For now, Red Canyon rests in the glow of autumn. Its rope turned from a weapon into a bond. The story ends, but its lesson remains. In the untamed West, dignity was never given. It was chosen.